St. Petersburg is a city of unparalleled grandeur and historical weight. Standing as Russia's most significant cultural gateway to the Western world. Geographically, it is located at the easternmost point of the Gulf of Finland, nestled within the delta of the Neva River as it meets the Baltic Sea. This location is not merely a point on a map, but a strategic masterstroke by Peter the Great, who sought to transform Russia into a maritime power. The city is spread across 42 islands, connected by an intricate network of hundreds of bridges and winding canals, a feature that has earned it the enduring nickname of the Venice of the North. Its position at 60 degrees north latitude places it among the northernmost major metropolises in the world, just a few degrees south of the Arctic Circle. This northerly location is the source of its most famous natural phenomenon, the white nights, which occur from late May to early July. During this period, the sun barely dips below the horizon, bathing the imperial facades in a surreal, pearlescent twilight that lasts through the night, drawing millions of visitors who wish to experience the city's ethereal glow. The city is famous for its strict, harmonious architectural layout, which was meticulously planned from its inception. Unlike Moscow, which grew organically and chaotically from a medieval core, St. Petersburg was a product of rationalism and Enlightenment ideals. Its flat, low-lying landscape dictated a horizontal skyline, punctuated only by the soaring gold spires of its cathedrals and the dome of St. Isaac's. This horizontal nature gives the city a sense of immense scale and openness, where the sky and water reflect the pale stones of the palaces. Beyond its physical beauty, St. Petersburg is famous as the intellectual and artistic heart of Russia. It is the city of Pushkin, Dostoevsky, Tchaikovsky, and Shostakovich. Every street corner and embankment seems to whisper stories of the Russian Empire, from the height of Tsarist opulence to the depths of revolutionary fervor. It is a federal city that functions as a museum in its own right, with its entire historic center designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. To understand St. Petersburg is to understand the soul of modern Russia, a place where European sophistication meets the vast, indomitable spirit of the East. Its famous status is cemented by its role as a living monument to the Romanov dynasty, serving as the imperial capital for over 2 centuries. Today, it remains Russia's second-largest city and its primary window to Europe, a port city that remains vital to trade, education, and the arts. Whether it is the majesty of the Neva River or the quiet charm of the Moika and Fontanka canals, the geography of the city is inseparable from its identity as a masterpiece of urban planning and a symbol of Russia's enduring resilience. The history and heritage of St. Petersburg is a dramatic saga of vision, labor, and survival, beginning with its official Saint Peter the Great established the city on land recently captured from Sweden during the Great Roman War, the Cyclones. Originally a desolate, marshy swamp at the mouth of the Neva River, a location so inhospitable that many of Peter's contemporaries thought it madness to build a city there. However, Peter was determined to create a modern, European-style capital that would serve as his window on the West, allowing Russia to compete with the maritime powers of Europe. The construction of the city was a monumental and tragic undertaking, as tens of thousands of serfs and soldiers were conscripted to drain the marshes and lay the foundations. Because the land was so soft, millions of wooden piles had to be driven into the ground. and stone was so scarce that Peter decreed that every ship or wagon entering the city had to carry a certain weight of stone as a tax. This brutal process led to a massive loss of life, giving rise to the saying that St. Petersburg is a city built on bones. In 1712, Peter officially moved the capital of Russia from Moscow to St. Petersburg, marking a radical shift in the nation's political and cultural trajectory. For the next 2 centuries, the city was the seat of the Romanov dynasty, growing in splendor under the reigns of empresses Elizabeth and Catherine the Great. These rulers invited the finest architects from Italy and France, such as Bartolomeo Rastrelli and Carlo Rossi, to design the Baroque and neoclassical palaces that define the city today. The heritage of the city is also tied to its old towns and forts, most notably the Peter and Paul Fortress, which was the very first structure built in 1703 to defend against Swedish incursions. While the fortress never saw combat, it became a notorious prison for political dissidents and later served as the burial site for nearly every Russian Tsar from Peter I to Nicholas II. The city's history took a tumultuous turn in the 20th century, as it became the cradle of the Russian Revolution. In 1905, the events of Bloody Sunday outside the Winter Palace sparked widespread unrest. And in 1917, the Bolsheviks seized power after the legendary blank shot from the cruiser Aurora signaled the storming of the Winter Palace. Following the revolution, the capital was moved back to Moscow in 1918, and the city was renamed Petrograd and then Leningrad in 1924, following the death of Vladimir Lenin. Perhaps the most defining and tragic chapter of its history was the siege of Leningrad during World War II, when Nazi German forces surrounded the city for 872 days. The citizens endured unimaginable famine and cold, with over 1 million people losing their lives, yet the city never surrendered. This heroic defense earned it the title of Hero City and remains a core part of its heritage. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the city regained its original name of St. Petersburg following a historic referendum. Today, its heritage is preserved in over 18,000 pre-revolutionary buildings that remain largely intact, offering a glimpse into the vanished world of the Russian Empire. The city's historic districts, such as the Vasilyevsky Island and the Petrograd side, contain layers of history. From 18th century wooden cabins to grand 19th century apartment blocks, making it a living archive of Russia's imperial and revolutionary past. The major attractions and landmarks of St. Petersburg are of such immense scale and beauty that they rival any of the great capitals of the world. At the very heart of the city lies Palace Square, a vast and majestic open space that serves as the site of many of Russia's most significant historical events. Dominating the square is the Winter Palace, an emerald green Baroque masterpiece that was the official residence of the Russian Tsars. Today, it houses the State Hermitage Museum, one of the oldest and largest museums in the world, containing over 3 million items. To walk through the Hermitage is to walk through the history of global art, from prehistoric artifacts and classical antiquities to the masterpieces of Da Vinci, Rembrandt, and Michelangelo. The interiors of the palace themselves are a landmark, featuring the golden Jordan staircase and the glittering malachite room. Just a short walk away is the Church of the Savior on Spilled Blood, which is perhaps the most iconic religious building in the city. Unlike the European-style architecture that dominates much of the center, This church was built in the traditional Russian Orthodox style, with colorful, intricate onion domes. It was constructed on the exact spot where Tsar Alexander II was assassinated in 1881, and its interior is covered in over 7,000 square meters of exquisite mosaics, making it one of the largest mosaic collections in Europe. Another architectural giant is St. Isaac's Cathedral, whose massive golden dome is visible from almost anywhere in the city. It took 40 years to build and required over 400 kilograms of gold to gild its dome and interiors. Visitors can climb to the colonnade for a panoramic view of the city's flat landscape and the Neva River. Nearby stands the Bronze Horseman, a dramatic equestrian statue of Peter the Great, commissioned by Catherine the Great. The statue sits atop the Thunderstone, a single piece of red granite weighing over 1,200 tons, and it has become a symbol of the city's indomitable will. For those seeking the spirit of the old city, the Peter and Paul Fortress on Zayaki Island is a must-see. Its golden spire, topped by an angel, marks the highest point in the historic center and houses the tombs of the Romanovs. The city is also famous for its main thoroughfare, Nevsky Prospekt, a 3-mile stretch of grand buildings, shops, and landmarks like the Kazan Cathedral, which was inspired by St. Peter's Basilica in Rome and served as a monument to Russia's victory over Napoleon. Just outside the city center, the imperial suburbs offer world-class attractions such as Petrov, often called the Russian Versailles. Famous for its grand cascade of 64 fountains and nearly 200 bronze statues, Petrov operates entirely on a gravity-fed water system designed in the 18th century. Another essential day trip is to the town of Pushkin to see the Catherine Palace, home to the world-famous Amber Room, a chamber decorated entirely with amber panels, gold leaf, and mirrors. These landmarks are not just tourist sites, but the very fabric of St. Petersburg's identity, representing a fusion of architectural ambition and historical memory. The city's numerous bridges, such as the Palace Bridge and the Anichkov Bridge, with its famous horse-tamer statues, add to the landmark status of the waterways themselves. Every turn in St. Petersburg reveals another monument or iconic building from the neoclassical Admiralty. With its golden weather-vane ship to the blue-domed Trinity Cathedral, creating a landscape that is both awe-inspiring and deeply rooted in the traditions of the Russian state. The culture and traditions of St. Petersburg are deeply rooted in a unique blend of Russian soul and European enlightenment, creating a social fabric that is notably different from the rest of the country. This city is often referred to as the cultural capital of Russia, and its residents, known as Peterburgers, take immense pride in their reputation for being polite, soft-spoken, and intellectually inclined. One of the most significant cultural traditions is the observation of the White Nights, which is not just a meteorological event, but a season of intense artistic and social activity. During this time, the city hosts the White Nights Festival, featuring world-class opera, ballet, and classical music performances at the Mariinsky Theater. The pinnacle of this season is the Scarlet Sails Celebration, a tradition that began after World War II to celebrate the end of the school year. It involves a massive pyrotechnic show and a tall ship with scarlet sails navigating the Neva River, symbolizing hope and the dreams of the youth. Beyond these grand festivals, the daily culture is governed by specific etiquette and local customs that reflect the city's imperial history. For instance, when visiting a Russian home in St. Petersburg, it is a mandatory tradition to remove one's shoes at the door and put on guest slippers provided by the host. Bringing a gift is essential, usually flowers or chocolates, but one must be careful with the number of flowers. An even number is strictly reserved for funerals, so a bouquet must always contain an odd number of stems. The city also maintains a very high standard for theater and concert etiquette, where dressing up is still a common practice and arriving late is considered a significant social faux pas. Religious traditions also play a massive role in the cultural life of the city, with the Russian Orthodox Church influencing many holidays and daily rituals. Observing Easter is a grand affair, involving midnight masses in cathedrals like the Kazan or St. Isaac's, followed by the breaking of the fast with traditional cakes called kulich. The city's history of endurance, particularly during the siege of Leningrad, has left a lasting cultural mark of resilience and a profound respect for bread and food. Wasting food is often seen as disrespectful to the memory of those who suffered during the war. Music and literature are the lifeblood of the city, and it is common to see people reading physical books on the metro or attending poetry readings in small, tucked-away cafes. The local music scene ranges from the classical mastery of the Saint Petersburg Philharmonic to a legendary underground rock culture that emerged in the 1980s at the Leningrad Rock Club, influencing generations of Russian youth. There is also a distinct Petersburg style of speech and vocabulary that differs from Moscow, such as using the word paradnaya for a grand building entrance instead of the more common podiyazd. This linguistic pride is part of a larger tradition of preserving the city's unique identity as a place of high art and historical gravity. Whether it is the quiet respect shown at Peskarovskoye Memorial Cemetery or the exuberant cheering during a Zenit St. Petersburg football match, the traditions of the city are a complex tapestry of imperial grandeur and gritty, modern survival. Local food and cuisine in St. Petersburg offer a fascinating journey through Russia's imperial past, its Soviet era, and its modern cosmopolitan present. The city's culinary identity is distinct, influenced by its proximity to the Baltic Sea and its historical role as a gateway for European ingredients. One of the most legendary dishes associated with the city is beef stroganoff, which was reportedly created for the Stroganoff family in their palace on Nevsky Prospekt. This dish of tender beef strips in a rich smetana or sour cream sauce, often served over potatoes or pasta, remains a staple of high-end and traditional dining alike. For a more humble and nostalgic experience, every visitor must try pishki, which are the traditional St. Petersburg donuts. The most famous place to eat them is the Pisheknaya on Bolshaya Konushanaya Street, which has remained largely unchanged since 1958. These rings of fried dough, heavily dusted with powdered sugar and served with a simple coffee and condensed milk, are a cult favorite and represent the enduring charm of the city's Soviet-era food culture. Another local specialty tied to the geography of the city is koryushika, or smelt fish. During the spring, the smell of fresh cucumbers wafts through the streets, which is the signature scent of this small fish as it migrates into the Neva River, traditionally fried until crispy and eaten whole. The koryushka is celebrated with an annual festival and is a true seasonal delicacy that locals eagerly anticipate. Soups are also a cornerstone of the local diet, with borscht being the most famous. While borscht is found across Russia and Eastern Europe, the St. Petersburg version often emphasizes a refined balance of beetroot, cabbage, and meat, served with a dollop of thick sour cream and a side of dark rye bread. For a quick and hearty meal, Pelmeni, or Russian dumplings, are ubiquitous. These are usually filled with a mixture of minced meats and served with butter or vinegar. The city also has a unique relationship with street food, most notably shawarma. While similar to a Middle Eastern shawarma, the St. Petersburg version has its own specific preparation and sauce that locals will fiercely defend as being superior to the versions found in Moscow. Traditional restaurants, often decorated in a 19th century style, offer grander meals like Pazarsky cutlets or sturgeon, reflecting the tastes of the Tsarist aristocracy. On the other end of the spectrum are the stolovayas, or Soviet-style canteens, which provide a budget-friendly way to eat like a local, offering trays of salads like olivier or dressed herring, alongside various porridges and compotes. The tea culture in St. Petersburg is also deeply ingrained, with the tradition of the samovar and long conversations over black tea and jam being a central part of domestic life. Modern St. Petersburg has also seen a boom in craft beer and creative fusion cuisine, with the Rubinshine Street area becoming a hub for foodies. Here, traditional Russian ingredients like buckthorn, chanterelles, and game meats are reimagined in contemporary ways. Food markets, such as the Koznechny Market, offer a sensory experience where you can sample honey, pickles, and artisanal cheeses from across the former Soviet republics, showcasing the city's role as a melting pot of flavors. Things to do and experiences in St. Petersburg range from the intellectually stimulating to the visually breathtaking, ensuring that every hour spent in the city is filled with discovery. One of the most essential experiences is a canal boat tour, which provides a completely different perspective of the city's architecture. Drifting under the low stone bridges of the Moika and Fontanka rivers allows you to see the hidden courtyards and the grand facades of palaces that were designed to be viewed from the water. For those who prefer to stay on land, walking tours are the best way to soak in the atmosphere of Nevsky Prospekt. This central artery is perfect for people watching, visiting historic bookstores like the Singer House, and admiring the Kazan Cathedral. A unique nocturnal experience that is exclusive to St. Petersburg is watching the raising of the drawbridges over the Neva. Between May and October, in the early hours of the morning, the massive bridges like the Palace Bridge and Trinity Bridge split and rise to allow large cargo ships to pass into the Baltic Sea. This event is often accompanied by music and light shows, with thousands of people lining the embankments to witness the spectacle. For lovers of the performing arts, attending a performance at the Mariinsky Theater is a bucket list item. Whether it is a classical ballet like Swan Lake or a powerful Russian opera, the acoustics and the gilded interior of the theater provide an unforgettable evening. If you are interested in a more contemporary vibe, the New Holland Island is a must-visit. This former naval base has been transformed into a modern park and creative hub with art installations, pop-up markets, outdoor yoga, and an ice rink in the winter. Shopping in St. Petersburg is another major activity, ranging from the historic Gostiny Dvor, one of the world's first shopping malls, to the trendy boutiques in the Petrograd Side District. For a touch of local grit and creativity, visiting the Loft Project at Tagi provides a view of the city from its rooftop and a chance to explore independent art galleries and local designer shops housed in a converted bakery. Nightlife in the city is legendary, particularly on Rubinstein Street, which is packed with bars, jazz clubs, and restaurants that stay lively until the sun comes up during the white nights. For families, the Leningrad Zoo, one of the oldest in Russia, and the Planetarium No. 1 which features a massive projection dome in an old gas tank, offer engaging ways to spend a day. History buffs can take a hydrofoil ride from the city center to Peterhof, experiencing the thrill of skimming across the Gulf of Finland before arriving at the spectacular fountain gardens. Another deeply atmospheric experience is visiting the apartment museums of famous writers, such as the Dostoevsky Museum or the Pushkin apartment on the Moika River, where you can see the very rooms where some of the world's greatest literature was composed. For a bird-eye view, climbing the 300 steps to the colonnade of St. Isaac's Cathedral is a physical challenge rewarded with a 360-degree panorama of the city's roofs and golden spires. Whether you are exploring the vast halls of the Hermitage or simply sitting on a bench in the summer garden, St. Petersburg offers a depth of experience that requires multiple visits to truly appreciate. And outdoor spots in St. Petersburg provide a necessary breath of fresh air and a change of pace from the city's dense imperial architecture, offering everything from manicured royal gardens to wild coastal landscapes. The most historic of these is the Summer Garden, which was personally designed by Peter the Great in the early 18th century to resemble the grand gardens of Europe. It is a place of quiet symmetry, filled with marble statues imported from Italy and shaded by centuries-old lime trees. Walking through its straight alleys, you can see the small palace of Peter I and a series of reconstructed fountains that were once the height of maritime engineering. For a more expansive and active outdoor experience, the islands in the Neva Delta, like Krestovsky and Yelagin, are the city's green lungs. Yelagin Island houses the Kirov Central Park of Culture and Recreation, where cars are banned, making it a paradise for walkers, joggers, and cyclists. In the winter, the park transforms into a snowy wonderland with large outdoor ice rinks, while in the summer, you can rent rowing boats to navigate its quiet ponds. Just across the water is Krestovsky Island, which offers a mix of modern entertainment at the Divo Ostrov, amusement park, and peaceful forest paths that lead toward the futuristic Gazprom Arena Stadium. For those willing to travel slightly further, the Gulf of Finland offers a coastal escape that feels worlds away from the city center. The northern shore, particularly the areas of Rupino and Sestroretsk, is famous for its sandy beaches and pine forests that lean into the sea breeze. This area, known as the Karelian Isthmus, was a favorite retreat for artists and writers like Ilya Repin, whose estate Penedy is now a museum set within beautiful grounds. The air here is noticeably cleaner, and the shallow waters of the Baltic are perfect for long walks along the shoreline, especially during the sunset. The imperial suburbs are also essentially massive nature reserves, with Pavlovsk Park standing out as one of the largest landscape gardens in Europe. Unlike the formal gardens of Peterhof, Pavlovsk was designed in the English style to look like a natural, rolling landscape with winding rivers, hidden temples, and vast meadows where wild squirrels are so tame they will eat from your hand. Peterhof itself is a triumph of nature modified by man, where the lower park stretches down to the sea, featuring the spectacular Grand Cascade. The gardens here are divided into formal French sections and more shaded, wooded areas where the trick fountains provide a playful surprise for visitors. For a unique maritime nature experience, the island city of Kronstadt offers a rugged beauty with its historic forts and views of the naval warships anchored in the bay. The city is also a gateway to the more distant nature of the Karelia region, but even within its boundaries, The Botanical Garden on Aptekarsky Island offers a lush indoor and outdoor collection of plants from across the globe, including a famous collection of giant water lily. In the spring, the city erupts in color as the lilac bushes and tulips bloom in the Field of Mars, a former parade ground that has become a popular spot for locals to lounge on the grass. Whether you are exploring the rocky coastline of Vyborg's Monrepos Park or simply watching the ice floes drift down the Mount Neva in early spring, the nature of St. Petersburg is characterized by a northern serenity that balances the city's urban intensity. The viewpoints from the city's rooftops also offer an unconventional outdoor experience, allowing you to see the green patches of the city interspersed with the silver ribbons of the canals. For those interested in birdwatching or quiet reflection, the wetlands on the outskirts of the city provide a habitat for migratory birds, reminding visitors that even this imperial stone capital is built upon a delicate and diverse ecosystem. Transportation. Tips for St. Petersburg are essential for any visitor navigating this sprawling metropolis, as the city offers a diverse and highly efficient network of transit options that are attractions in their own right. The backbone of the city is the St. Petersburg Metro, which is famous for being one of the deepest subway systems in the world due to the soft marshy ground and the need to dive under the Neva River. The metro is not just a way to get around, but a subterranean museum, with stations like Avtovo and Kirovsky Zavod featuring crystal chandeliers, marble pillars, and bronze bas-reliefs that celebrate Soviet labor and imperial history. To use the system effectively, tourists should purchase a Paderewski card, which is a reusable smart card that can be topped up with credit and used on almost all forms of public transport, providing a significant discount compared to single-ride tokens or tickets. The metro lines are color-coded and easy to follow, though visitors should be prepared for the long, steep escalator rides that can take several minutes to reach the platforms. Above ground, the city is served by an extensive network of buses, trolleybuses, and trams. Trams are particularly iconic in St. Petersburg, which once held the record for the longest tram network in the world. A ride on a vintage-style tram through the historic center is a charming way to see the sights at a slower pace. For modern convenience, taxi apps like Yandex.Go are indispensable, offering fixed pricing and the ability to track your driver, which is much safer and more reliable than hailing a car on the street. One of the most important things to remember when planning your transport at night is the opening of the Neva bridges. During the navigation season from April to November, the main bridges across the Neva split and rise in the early hours of the morning to allow ships to pass. This means that if you are on the wrong side of the river after 1:30 a.m., you may be stranded until the bridges close again around 5 a.m. Although some bridges have a brief midnight closure to allow traffic to flow. For travel to the imperial suburbs like Peterhof, the fastest and most scenic option is the hydrofoil, known as a meteor, which departs from the embankment behind the Hermitage and zips across the Gulf of Finland in about 35 minutes. Alternatively, suburban trains known as elektrichkas depart from the various railway stations like Baltiski or Vitebsky, offering a very affordable and authentic local experience. Walking remains one of the best ways to explore the compact historic center, as many of the main attractions are within walking distance of Nevsky Prospekt. But visitors should be mindful of the immense scale of the city, where one block can be much longer than it appears on a map. For water-based transit within the city, there are river buses and numerous tour boats that navigate the canals. providing a Venice-like experience that avoids the city's traffic congestion. When using public buses, it is common for a conductor to be on board to collect fares, though many newer buses now use automated tap-to-pay systems. It is also worth noting that the metro stations often have multiple exits, sometimes blocks apart, so checking the map at the station exit is crucial for coming out in the right place. For those arriving from Moscow, the Sapsan high-speed train is the premier transportation choice, delivering passengers to the Moskovsky railway station in under 4 hours in total comfort. Overall, the transportation in St. Petersburg is a blend of grand Soviet engineering and modern digital convenience, making it relatively easy to navigate as long as you account for the northern weather and the schedule of the rising. Bridges, shopping, and souvenirs in St. Petersburg offer a rich array of choices that reflect the city's high art heritage, its imperial craftsmanship, and its unique northern identity. The primary destination for any shopper is Nevsky Prospekt, a 3-mile stretch lined with everything from global luxury brands to tiny basement boutiques. One of the most iconic places to shop is the Bolshoi Gostiny Dvor, a massive 18th century department store that occupies an entire city block and houses hundreds of individual stalls and shops selling everything from traditional Russian furs to modern electronics. Directly across from it is the Passage, a stunning 19th century glass-roofed arcade that provides a more upscale and elegant atmosphere. For a truly unique and high-quality souvenir, the Imperial Porcelain Manufactory is a must. Founded in 1744, it was the first porcelain producer in Russia and served the imperial court. Its signature cobalt net pattern, a delicate blue and gold design, is recognized worldwide and remains a symbol of St. Petersburg elegance. Another quintessential Russian gift is amber, often called the gold of the Baltic. Because the region is near the world's largest amber deposits, you can find a vast range of amber jewelry, from raw and modern pieces to intricate carvings, though it is best to buy from reputable stores like the Amber Museum or dedicated galleries to ensure authenticity. Matryoshka dolls or nesting dolls are available on every corner, but for a special version, look for those painted with scenes from St. Petersburg architecture or those created by local artists in the traditional style. Pavlovsky posted shawls with their vibrant floral patterns and wool fringe are another beautiful and practical souvenir that reflects Russian folk traditions. For food-related gifts, the Elyseev Emporium on Nevsky Prospekt is a destination in itself. This Art Nouveau masterpiece is filled with gourmet treats, including Russian caviar, artisanal chocolates from the local Krupskaya factory, and a wide variety of flavored vodkas. Caviar is a popular but strictly regulated purchase. If you plan to take it out of the country, ensure you buy it from an authorized shop and keep the receipt, as there are limits on the amount of sturgeon caviar you can legally export. Soviet-era memorabilia is also a huge draw, with markets near the Church of the Savior on spilled blood offering vintage badges, Ashoka hats, and mechanical watches like the Raketa brand, which has its factory nearby in Peturov. For a more modern shopping experience, the Galleria Mall next to the Moskovsky railway station is the city's largest and most popular, featuring hundreds of international stores and a great selection of local Russian fashion brands that are gaining popularity for their minimalist and edgy designs. Books are also a major part of the shopping culture. The Dom Nigi, or House of Books, located in the historic Singer Building, offers a massive selection of art books, postcards, and literature in many languages, along with one of the best views of the Kazan Cathedral from its cafe. If you are looking for antiques or one-of-a-kind vintage finds, the Adolnaya Flea Market is a legendary spot on the outskirts of the city where you can dig through layers of history, from pre-revolutionary silver to Soviet household items. When buying souvenirs, it is helpful to remember that bargaining is common at outdoor markets, but not in established stores or malls. Additionally, be aware that any item older than 50 years may be considered a cultural treasure, requiring special permits to take abroad, so it is usually safer to stick to modern reproductions of icons or antiques, unless you are buying from a licensed dealer who can provide the necessary paperwork. Whether you are looking for a small magnet or a piece of fine jewelry, the shopping landscape of St. Petersburg is as varied and grand as the city itself. Planning a trip to St. Petersburg requires a unique set of practical preparations, starting with the visa process, which has become significantly more streamlined. In 2026, most international visitors from over 60 countries are now eligible for the Russian Unified e-visa, which can be applied for online and allows for a stay of up to 30 days. It is crucial to apply at least 4 days before your arrival and to assure that every detail on the application exactly matches your passport, as even a minor typo can lead to a denial at the border. One of the most critical practical tips for 2026 involves financial logistics, as international credit and debit cards like Visa and MasterCard issued outside of Russia generally do not work within the country due to ongoing banking restrictions. Travelers must hold sufficient cash in major currencies like US dollars or Chinese yuan to exchange for rubles upon arrival, or they can look into obtaining a local air bank card specifically designed for tourists, which can be topped up with cash. When it comes to the best time to visit, the peak season is undoubtedly during the white nights from late May to early July, when the city is at its most magical, but also its most crowded and expensive. If you prefer a more moody and atmospheric experience, the early autumn in September offers beautiful golden foliage, while the winter from January to February provides a true Russian wonderland experience with frozen canals and snow-dusted palaces, though the sub-zero temperatures require serious thermal gear. Safety in St. Petersburg is generally comparable to any large European city, with a high level of police presence in the historic center. However, tourists should remain vigilant against pickpockets, particularly in crowded areas like Nevsky Prospekt, the Hermitage entrance, and on public transport. A very specific St. Petersburg tip is to always keep track of the nighttime bridge opening schedule between April and November. If you are staying on one side of the Neva and your destination is on the other, you must cross back before approximately 1:25 a.m., or you will be stranded until the bridges close again around 5 a.m. Regarding local laws, it is mandatory to carry your original passport and migration card at all times, as authorities may conduct random document checks. Additionally, travelers should be aware of the laws regarding photography. While taking photos of palaces and monuments is encouraged, it is strictly forbidden to photograph military installations, government buildings, or police officers. The dress code in St. Petersburg is generally casual but leans towards the stylish side, reflecting the city's cultural pride. However, religious etiquette is very strict. When entering a Russian Orthodox church, women should cover their heads with a scarf and wear skirts that fall below the knee, while men must remove their hats and avoid wearing shorts. Language can be a barrier, as many signs are only in Cyrillic. So downloading an offline translation app and a map like Yandex Maps is highly recommended, as it is often more accurate than global competitors in this region. Finally, remember that while Peterburgers may seem reserved or serious on the street or in the metro, they are known for their hospitality once a conversation begins. Avoid engaging in public political demonstrations or loud debates in public spaces to ensure a smooth and respectful visit to this imperial capital. In summary, St. Petersburg stands as a monumental achievement of human will and artistic vision. A city that was literally conjured out of a swamp to become one of the most beautiful and culturally significant metropolises on Earth. It is a place where the grandeur of the Russian Empire is preserved in every stone of the Winter Palace and every golden reflection on the Neva River. Throughout this exploration, we have seen how Peter the Great's dream of a window to the west transformed into a city of 4,000 monuments and over 200 museums, earning it a rightful place as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. From the tragic heroism of the siege of Leningrad to the revolutionary fervor that changed the course of the 20th century, the history of St. Petersburg is not just a Russian story, but a global one. The city offers a sensory experience unlike any other. Whether you are listening to the echoes of Tchaikovsky in the Mariinsky for the modern traveler, St. Petersburg remains a destination that demands both time and reflection, offering a depth of experience that goes far beyond simple sightseeing. It is a city that requires you to walk its long embankments, to lose yourself in the vast halls of the Hermitage, and to feel the cold breeze of the Baltic Sea on your face. Despite the challenges of its climate and the complexities of its past, the city continues to thrive as Russia's intellectual and cultural heart, welcoming those who seek to understand the intersection of European sophistication and the vast Russian soul. As you depart from its grand railway stations or the modern Pulkovo airport, you carry with you the memory of a city that refuses to be forgotten. A place of stone and water, gold and granite, that remains one of the greatest masterpieces of urban planning in history. St. Petersburg is more than just a destination. It is a living testament to the endurance of culture and the power of a vision that turned a desolate marsh into a crown jewel of civilization. Whether you come for the art, the history, or the sheer aesthetic beauty of its canals, the Venice of the North leaves an indelible mark on the heart of every visitor, promising that no matter how many times you return, there will always be a new secret to discover in its shadowed courtyards or under its brilliant northern sky. This concludes our comprehensive guide to St. Petersburg, a city that remains, centuries after its founding, the most beautiful gateway between Russia and the world.